Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joining me today from Hy-Vee, it is our registered dietitian, Amy. She's back and she's ready to bring in the new year with some new goals. We're going to be setting goals for the new year. Amy, first off, Happy New Year. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you. Happy New Year to you as well. Sorry, doing great.
Hey, well, we're both off to a good start here for the new year. It's all right. When we plan these ahead, and I'm not going to lie, we try to think of good things, good topics that are going to work for everybody. And setting new goals for the new year, we know is a popular thing. We didn't necessarily want to give you, all the hippie and trippy stuff that's out there, but set reasonable goals. Really just take the time and absorb in what you can do that's in your control. And I can only say this because Amy's told me this, so I'm really just saying what Amy's told me in the past. But Amy, I think new year, new you, but what do we got to do?
Yes. So, and as you and I have discussed, this is the time of year that's very typical for people to be setting new goals. And so it's also the time of year where you just get inundated with ads and marketing, and it's very focused on the latest diet, the latest workout trend. This is the thing that's going to change your life this year. So there's just a lot of noise this time of year. And so really, we wanted to address that today and really talk about shutting out the noise and really just kind of taking time to focus on yourself and start to think, what do I really want to do and what's realistic?
It's true. Just anything and everything out there is too good to be true. There are so many new anything and everything you can think of. But as we start here, the first one, it's not difficult, but I think it's reaching out to you, but picking a diet that when you're choosing a diet of any sort, I mean, listen to the professionals, maybe not the friends and because you get all these recommendations. Hey, I'm doing this juicing thing, I'm doing this protein thing. Where do you even take all of that?
That's a great point. And I think, yes. And one thing I would say, generally what I tell people is try not to think of it as picking a diet, because I think with that comes the expectation of short term. A lot of times people think, and I'll have clients say to me, well, it goes really well when I'm on it, but when I'm off it, then I'm not as successful. And so where I really try to help people think is, instead of, am I going to pick something to do for 2 weeks? How about we just start to think about, how do I want to eat for the rest of my life? And maybe take that approach instead of I'm going to try something on for a couple of weeks and see if it works. Because I think then you start to get in that pattern of just trying all these different things and nothing's really working, and it just gets frustrating, instead of really thinking, what do I want to do and what's going to work that I can sustain long term.
Yeah, you note here that it's a not one size fit all approach is really important. It's something that you have said on this show before. You should set the parameters. You being the person, the customer, the client. You're out there to help them find ways, not try to force them down any specific rabbit hole.
Exactly, because somebody could come to me and say, I want to completely change the way I eat. I want to have home cooked meals every single night. I don't want to eat anything that's pre-made in a box. And if we start to talk and it turns out that you don't have the time to do that, or maybe your cooking skills aren't where you would want them to be, those two things don't necessarily match. And so that's kind of setting yourself up for failure, instead of starting with, this is where I am right now. This is the reality of my situation. What are some things I can reasonably do to make those changes that are going to work, that I'm going to have success with? Because that tends to work much better than if you're just trying to fit into somebody else's mold. Generally, that's not the recipe for success. It's better if you kind of start with where you are, and then we can tweak from there.
And one of those ways is to set up some goals. And I love this because we just went through one of these for marketing, setting up some SMART goals. And you're like, oh my God, wait, SMART goal at home? Are you kidding me?
Yes. Yes. A SMART goal at home. Yes. So SMART goals stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and trackable. And really the idea behind setting that SMART goal is because it just helps you break it down into steps that you can actually take to achieve that goal. And like you said, your team is using it for marketing. We can use it for lifestyle changes. You can use it for all different types of aspects of your life. So, an example might be if somebody comes to me and says, I want to eat more vegetables. Okay, great. How are you going to measure that? How are you going to know that you did that? How are you going to break that down into steps that you can do every day instead of saying, I want to eat one more serving of vegetables every day. Now it turns into something more actionable that we can actually put into plan, we can track it, and then we can look back and see progress. So it's just a different way of thinking about goals that makes it more easy to implement.
Without saying going back to the basics, but really when you talk to clients and stuff, do you see successes in things that are probably on the basic scale of eating healthy and getting going versus, boy, I tried 20 diets things, from TV to you name it to friend. Do you see a better success with starting plain and simple versus, again, taking on that giant new shiny object of a workout or healthy eating?
Definitely. And I think too, if it's coming from, if the client themselves is saying, this is what I want to do, this is where I feel like I can make these changes, absolutely. Then if it's just a friend coming along to say, you should really try this. It worked for me. You should try it. The more the client can kind of own that goal and then looking at, okay, well, this is what I do normally. Yeah, I could tweak that rather than throwing everything out the door and starting completely over with a new set of, guidelines and foods and all of those things. Absolutely. I've seen people have much better success and longer term success than kind of jumping on the latest bandwagon.
And going back and evaluating kind of your trackable or the things that you've learned as you're going through maybe your SMART goals, do you find people are like, dang, like you tell them at their next appointment, or you're saying, well, we added like 20 vegetables. That's not a big deal. And do you go back and tell people like, hey, you've made it, you've done it. And so that, but also how long do you give the time to get into your goals and seeing the tracking stuff, if you know what I'm saying here?
No, that's a great question. And I think everybody's a little bit different. Some people might want to set a goal for a week and just work on that. So I would say, especially initially, maybe like a week or two is kind of a nice time frame to give yourself. To just pick maybe one or two goals, again, not really overwhelming yourself so you feel like you're changing everything you're doing. So that seems like a nice time frame. And then too, it gives you enough tracking data to look back and say, like you said, oh my gosh, wow, that was easier than I thought it was going to be. Or it could be a case of, wow, that was harder than I thought it was going to be. And then we can talk about why. Why was it hard? What got in your way? What can we fix for the next time? Let's fix those things and then work on it again for 2 weeks. And so you can start to see that success build up over those smaller chunks of time. And then you can just keep building on all of those things as you go.
Yeah, new you doesn't mean new by January, 31st, yes. and you're done. And you're like, well, new you next year. No, you gotta let it play out a little bit. And there's gonna be wins and losses on this. And you've shared that plenty of times. But I think being a little bit more strategic, setting some achievable goals here, if you're still lost, if you're still like, oh my gosh, where do I go? What do I do? Hy-Vee, we're lucky enough that Hy-Vee's across the area here have you guys in store and ready to help out. But more importantly, working with a dietitian to help you is a great start, no matter if it's Hy-Vee or wherever.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what we're there for. We're not going to just hand you something and say, this is what you have to follow. That's not what that experience is going to be like. So sometimes people have a misconception about dietitians that we're just going to tell you what to do. That's not really that's not really our style. Definitely not my style. More what will happen is we will take the time to have a conversation with you and talk to you about what your goals are, what has worked in the past, what hasn't worked, and really learn about you so that we can help you make those recommendations for things that you can change that will work for you. And that's where it's nice to have a dietitian to work with. And another thing too is that accountability factor, is having somebody to check in with, having somebody to report those successes to. That relationship can be really positive too, as you're trying to make some of those changes.
All right. Well, if people want to learn more, get started, or pick up where we've left off and really set some goals, how can they do that?
Yes. So best way to reach us is to go to Hy-Vee.com. There is a dietitian page there. And so you can find all the Hy-Vee dietitians there. We do offer a free discovery session. It's a 30-minute appointment with a Hy-Vee dietitian where you just get a chance to chat with us. Maybe you want to do some of our services. You don't know what it looks like or how that would play out. So that gives you a chance to just start to create that relationship and then figure out maybe what your next steps would be after that.
All right. We've set some goals here on this program, on this interview. Amy, you've done a great job again, and we'll look forward to some fun segments here in 2023.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it.